Okay, so I want to use some of these grey board cutouts on my layout. I'm not sure how many of the butterflies I'm going to need, but I do know that I want to use the word love. And then from the sticker sheet, the Tim Holtz sticker sheet, there's this, I found this little word that says these. So basically my title is going to say love these, and it's going to run off and say memories. Okay, so that's what I want to use. I am going to prep the surface for everything, because maybe I want to use the love this, and maybe I want to use some of these arrows. You never know. So for safety's sake and to have everything done, I'm going to prep my surface with a brayer and some white acrylic paint. Okay, so all you need to do is put your paint down I like to use the acetate. You can use this, or you can use your craft mat, whichever is easier. But because I want to use my white probably a little bit more later on, I'm going to keep it on the acetate sheet so I can move it away without having to clean it up. And then lightly brayer some paint over the surface just to prep my grey board embellishments that I plan to use. Okay, you can see how easy it is to get the paint on and to get a big area covered really quickly. So there we go. I'll put that aside to dry as well. Remember, never leave it in the messy part that you're busy working in. Okay, while those dry, I'm quickly going to clean up. This I'm going to, because I want to use it, I'm just going to mist it with some water to keep that paint wet. And I'm just going to put this aside, and I can always use that a little bit later. I'm going to give my brayer clean my space, and I will see you in a bit. Right, to color in the little embellishments that we're going to use on the page, I use a piece of acetate to create like a paint palette. I poured out the colors that I plan to use, and I keep them in front of me. So if you look here, in the order that I've put them on my palette. So I'll move it down a little bit so you can see better. I'm just going to shift them out the way again. So I have a blob of bundle sage, to ice spruce, fossilized amber, walnut stain, and pumice stone. And the paints are runny, so they come out quite quickly. You have to just control it. I probably put too much fossilized amber out there, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, then you need some brushes. I have these, like I say, very furry brushes, we can call them that. They're very frayed and old, but they do a really good job. Okay, so I'm thinking to do, like I said, I want to make the title Love These Memories. And I want, the love is going to go, it's going to lay over this piece here. I already know this. So I'm going to paint it with the pumice stone, and then add a little bit of shading with the bundle sage and the ice spruce. Okay, so I'm going to paint the entire thing with pumice stone first. I'm just putting the paint on very rough, just to get that first layer of paint on. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the circle and the heart part of it yet, but we may as well color it in just now, just in case I think I do want to use it. Okay. I'm not putting any of the pumice stone on the hearts. I'm just going on the circle part of the cutter part and on the love. Okay. Then I'll go back in and tap, while that paint is kind of wet, I'll just tap it into place, just so that it's going to come off on some places and stay on in other places. Now when I change to move to a new color, I will clean my brush off either on a paper towel or I have a tiling nappy, and then move it. You don't want to leave it in the wet paint for too long because it will stick. Right, and that's almost dry. It's not 100% dry, but it'll do. While I'm waiting for that to dry properly, I'm going to do the hearts. I'm going to mix the bundle sage with some of the fossilized amber. To get that kind of greeny yellow that we have in the pattern, and I'm going to paint the hearts. I'm going to tap the paint on. It kind of looks like a dirty yellow, I know, but don't stress. We will brighten everything up and make it look nice as we go along. So again, you can see, tapping the paint on and not using too many brush strokes. And then again, just double checking how nice it's gonna, if it's going to stand out on here. Okay, so you can see the love is going to stand out nicely, but we're losing the bit of the circle, it's fading away. So we can add, again, clean off my brush, I'm not wetting it. I'm going to pick up some of the ground espresso, and I'm going to go around the circles by tapping on some paint. Can you see? So no solid brush strokes. This is, I find, my favorite way to add paint to any kind of chipboard, whether it be wood, the hard cardboard, or the grey board like this. This is my favorite way to add paint, even ink, to the surface. Okay, so now I want to add a bit of shading and make it stand out a little bit more. So again, I'm going to clean off my brush, and I'm going to use some of the iced spruce. I'm going to pick it up, pull it out, and just get some on my brush. There is still some of this yellow inside the little bristles, which is fine for me. That's why I don't rinse the brushes off. And we're going to just hold the brush at an angle like that, hold it flat, and just drag it down over the love. So I can get a little bit of that bundle sage on. Okay, and before I carry on, we're going to just double check that it's still going to stand out. We still want that love to stand out, yes. I'm going to give it a quick dry. Okay. There we go. I'm going to take off any excess paint that I have on my brush. And this time I'm going to create that same distress look, picking up some of the brown. Blot off anything that might be too much, make it too full. And then the same thing, I'm just going to pull, everything's dry, over the hearts, like that. And over the love. And you'll see a tiny little bit of paint starting to pull onto the surface. Okay, so remember there's paint on this side of the brush as well, so you can just turn it over and then we'll take it from the bottom. Okay, and then I can feel that I have no more paint on my brush, so I'm just going to pull a little bit in. And then we're going to work left to right. And then turn it over and then go from left to right again. Then just a few touch-ups. Double check it. And there we go. That's going to tie in. You can see how nicely that yellowy green is going to pick up with the green on the background there. Okay. Then the last thing I want to do is just go in with a little bit more of the bundle sage and the fossilized amber. I'll mix that a little bit more. Just pull it in. And just in the middle of the heart, I'm just going to tap on some of that paint. You'll see now, do you see? So just in the middle, just to brighten it up. I'm not going out to the edges, I'm just adding it here in the middle. Like that. Okay. Maybe add a little bit of it out onto the frame like that. There we go. I like the way that's turning out. So I'm going to put that, leave that to dry. And like I said, I might want to use the Love This. I'm going to just paint that with brown. So again, just tapping on the paint. I'm going to pick up this new color of yellow that we've created and tap a little bit of that on as well. Right, so next I want to do the arrows in case I want to use them. I'm just going to take a clean brush and I'm going to paint them with one with bundle sage, one with ice spruce. Maybe we should do two of each. So 2 bundle sage and 2 of the ice spruce. We'll just leave those to dry. Okay, so we need to just paint the butterflies. I'm going to carry on using the color palette that I have already put out for us over here. And then the only extra that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the butterflies once I'm done with some distress embossing glaze. I'm going to use the hickory smoke. So you'll need that and some clear embossing liquid. But again, it's not, you don't have to do this. You can leave this step out. And then just go around the edges with black if you don't have the glaze. So I'm just going to pick a few random colors and add the pumice stone. I'm just going to rub it on roughly like we did with the title. I'm just going to work in little circles and get some paint on some of the butterflies. Sure I've got a good layer of the pumice stone on everywhere like that. Okay, just going to clean up here. The only reason for cleaning up now is I don't want any of this to mix in with the other colors. Okay, and then I'm just going to give it a dry. Right. Okay, so I'm back to my first brush that I used, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from the inside out. So I'm going to mix some of this, the 3 colors, some bundle sage, some ice spruce with a fossilized amber. I'm going to mix them together like that, so that I get more of a greeny kind of yellow like that. And I'm going to tap the color on in the center of the flowers, in the center of the butterflies like that. I put the pumice stone on underneath because I don't want it too bright. I'll do one of these ones and you can see how bright it comes out and almost like a dirty color, as opposed to what I'm getting with the pumice stone as my base color. So all of these are going to be done exactly the same. I'm not worried about how much or how little I get on. I'm just getting that yellow paint on the center of the butterflies. There you go. Clean off your brush. Then I'm going to go and do the same thing just with the ice spruce next to that yellow on either side of the wings. So I'm just going to put speed it up. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Just add a bit of the ice spruce either side of that yellow. Okay, once it's done, clean off the brush. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the bundle sage. The little bits that are left, I'm going to go in and add that paint either side. So like it's creating like an ombre effect, but with colors. Going from the yellow into the gray into the green. Right, so I've cleaned off my brush. There's very little paint on my brush. You can see when I push it on the surface. And basically I'm just going to now go in, and where there's, I'll show on this one where there's that harsh line, I'm just going to tap it out with the brush just to soften that line between the yellow and the between the gray and the green, like that. After each one, I will wipe off whatever paint may be on my brush from the blending. I haven't touched the yellow yet. I'm just softening the line between the gray and the green. So between the ice spruce and the bundle sage. Okay, so you can see, oh, I didn't do the white one. Let me quickly do this one. All right, so you can see on some places I've already worked in quite a bit of the yellow. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit more of that yellow to the centers of the butterflies. At least I remembered they're butterflies this time and not flowers. Okay, and just soften that center. So I am picking up a very little bit of paint on my brush and then just working that center out to soften it. Because we put down a base, we've put down the base, sealed the grey board, and then we put on the Puma Stone. That's giving us just a little bit of extra drying time. And because of the way we've applied the paint, instead of with brush strokes, we're adding tappers. It just gives you a little bit more time, open time to blend your paint effects on your surface. So now what I can do is I can hold this up to one or two of the patterns, and you can see how nicely this is going to tone in with the patterns that I've chosen for this layout. Okay, I'm just going to clean up and then we will chat again soon. Okay, I'm just going to dry that quickly before we add the next step. It is reasonably dry. It's not that it's sopping wet, but I would like to have the paint dry. Okay, for the next step you're going to need like a very thin brush and your brown paint, and all you're going to do is paint the bodies of the butterflies. So just pull the paint down. You can choose to do them in brown or black, it's entirely up to you. Because I'm using ground espresso to ink around the edges with everything, I think the brown centers will look better. I'm just going to do that quickly. Then my last step will be to add that distressed effect, like my version of inking with paint, to the edges. So we're just going to dip it in the brown, take off any excess. You can dab off some on your paper towel or a nappy, and then hold the brush flat and pull it so that the paint catches on the edges of the butterflies. So always in one direction first, so we're working left to right, and then we will turn it later and we will work again left to right, but from the other side. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way that's turned out. I am going to put my little paint palette aside in case I need a little bit more a little bit later on. We'll see. And then we're going to do a little bit of embossing. So the next step is completely optional. You do not have to do it. You will need your hickory smoke embossing glaze. Now remember, you need to use a glaze because it is translucent. If you use a gray embossing powder, it's just going to cover everything. So you want to use something that's translucent, and the glazes are that. They will still let all this color show through. So before I go ahead and do them all, this one that I did white, I'm going to use it as my tester. I'll use a brush to apply my embossing ink. I find I've got more control with the brush than if I try and use the dabber. And then I'm going to test out to see if I like the effect that the glaze is going to create over my work. This will save a lot of heartache, because in my head, as with many of us, it looks like a brilliant plan. But the minute you put it into practice, it doesn't quite turn out the way you expected. I'm hoping it does what I want it to do. Okay, I am now going to use an embossing gun to heat set this. This was completely by accident. I have found that if you overheat the embossing glaze on a painted surface, it moves and creates a really awesome effect. And that's basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to push the glaze. You'll see when it melts. I'm going to try push the glaze out to the end of my butterflies. Okay, so for this you need to use an embossing gun because they get reasonably hot. You can work with the heat tool as well if you want to, but you'll just need to work a little bit longer. Okay, so first you're going to heat it up. I'm going to turn the sound off and you can just see what I'm doing. But first we heat it up. Once your heat gun is hot, then we can start to emboss. I like to lift it up slightly so that the heat can travel through. Work in circles so that you can spread the heat evenly. And you'll see when it starts to melt. You can already see that some of it's starting to melt. And you see where it's starting to overheat? I'm able to move the glaze out. Okay, so I'm going to just turn it off and chat to you quickly. So you can see as I'm applying heat, how the glaze starts to move. I'm going to carry on doing that until I have enough of the dark on the side edges like I want. So there you go, you can see how the glaze, if you overheat it, how it moves around. And like I say, I happened upon this by accident, by not paying attention when I was heat embossing, and all of a sudden the glaze just separated. And you can use the heat tool then to direct the direction of where you want the embossing glaze to go. And because it's translucent, that yellow is coming through at the bottom. So if I bring my pattern papers in, you can see the difference by adding the glaze, how that's going to pop out. Okay, so again, this is optional. If you prefer it like this, I would then just go use some paint and just go around the edges a little bit darker. But I think the glaze really helps blend it so that it matches this paper perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them. I like the effect. I will work in sections. So, and then once I'm done with a butterfly, I cut it out and put it aside so that I now don't overheat this one again. So once I'm happy with it, I'm going to chop it out, put it aside, and then start on the next. Okay, so for me, like I say, I like to take the butterfly out because it's done now, and I don't want to heat it to the point where there is absolutely no glaze left on my butterflies. Okay, otherwise it just becomes like all shiny. But really, that for me, that has turned out really awesome. And where I've missed a spot with the glaze, where I didn't get any or enough clear liquid on, the embossing liquid on, it's made like a mottled effect, which really adds to the interest of the butterfly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so while I was busy doing all the butterflies, you can see how awesome they have turned out. And before I clean up my space, I was wondering what it would look like if I did this on the hearts and maybe on the love. So I'm going to give it a try. If we don't like it, well, I can always change and add something else. but I'm sure it's going to turn out really nice. So I'm going to add a bit of the embossing ink to the love. I don't necessarily need it to get on everywhere, and I'm going to add some to the hearts, and then I'm going to add the embossing glaze to this and then melt it exactly the same way I did with the butterflies, and let's see what we get. So normally if I was trying to get a really neat embossing effect, any powder that filtered over onto a piece that I didn't want, I would dust off with a brush, but I don't mind. I don't mind if we get a little bit on where we haven't aimed for. So I'm just going to heat set this and let's see what happens. I'll see you in a bit. And there we go. I think that's going to look really awesome. I like the way that's turned out. It looks almost as if the hearts are kind of burnt, and look how much better that's going to stand out now when I put that onto that to create my title. I think that's turned out really well. So I am going to clean up, and we'll be back to start to assemble the page. I have kept my little paint palette. I've kept it off to the side in case I want to add a few little bits and pieces here and there. I have this, so we might be embossing these a little bit later on. We'll see. Okay, so just keep your stuff nearby because we might need it again. Okay, so let me clean up and I will see you in a bit.